In this video, we're going to discuss the rise and fall behavior. All right, so I have been put up to a dare. My friends have dared me to enter this haunted house. Ooh, scary, I'm sure. But I'm going along with it for the laughs, and I've got my flashlight here. You can tell this place is just set up to be kind of a spooky environment, but I'm sure there's no real ghosts here, right? So I'm just gonna flip the light switch on. I mean, kind of a haunted house has power, right? It's probably nothing. Oh my goodness, there is a ghost. After all, it's pretty scary. Oh my gosh, it's screaming at me. Oh wow. Paranormal activity here. I am getting out of here while I still can. So that's the rise and fall behavior demonstrated. Let's see how it works. So obviously there's a little bit more going on here than just the rise and fall behavior, and I'll explain everything just so you understand how I put this together. Real quick, the light switch turns on the lights, obviously, but then it also activates this chair, which has a timed event on it. I use this a lot to kind of get the timing of things just right, so I would encourage you to do that. There's a video for that one, so I won't get into the details. That is also activating the girl and also the vase. Now the girl is not shown at the start, so here shown at start of level is unticked, but she has the hide behavior on there. So a few seconds after she's shown, she hides herself. Then there's the vase, which is the object that has the rise and fall behavior. So when the girl appears, the vase begins to float. So obviously that kind of draws a connection to the spiritual entity in the room. And here we have a number of different parameters that we can set. We have the prompt text, which is just some text that can appear on the screen once the object begins to rise. I chose not to have any text on the screen. That's up to you. We have the rise height, which is how far above wherever it is currently will it rise. In my case, I chose 30 units. It looked about right to me. The rise speed is just how fast will it rise from where it is to where it needs to be. And again, that's that speed, dial it in, see what feels right to you. Everybody's going to be different. We have the hover mode. Well, I chose to turn my hover mode on. And when you do that, then the next few parameters come into play. So with it on, we can choose the hover height, which basically is a variation from where it rises to. So in other words, it would probably float from like say 30 units to 25 and then back to 30 and kind of back and forth. That's the hover behavior. And then we have a rotate speed. The object begins to rotate immediately. The speed is obviously just how fast is it rotating. And then you can tick these boxes here to choose for it to rotate on whichever axes you would like. You can have just one, two, or all three. So in other words, this red arrow here represents the x-axis. The green axis represents y, and the blue represents z. So if you wanted to spin on all three axes, you just check all three boxes. Then we have the max offset Z. Now, this was interesting. The higher the number, the more the offset. And what that really means is, I don't know, play it back if you want to, but I don't know if you noticed the object wasn't just rotating on its axis. It was also kind of spinning in a counterclockwise fashion around the table, kind of like this. 5 was just a little bit to kind of give it some wobble to it. If you go higher than that, then it'll be a much bigger circle, bigger diameter. I chose not to do that because it would clip through the wall. But you can play around with that. You could get some really interesting effects just playing around with some of these parameters. Then we have the release mode. Now, there's a couple different release modes here. We have the gravity fall, which means once it's done rising, it would just fall directly. Gravity would take over and it would fall directly down. I chose thrown randomly. So in other words, it chooses a direction, just throws it in that direction. And it is pretty random. I've had it go off in all kinds of different directions. Or you can throw it at the player. So if you want, you can have it go directly towards wherever the player is. If you do that, you can also damage the player, which we'll get to in a second. But the release force is just how violently is it being thrown? How fast is it being thrown? I think this might have been the default number. I don't remember offhand. Obviously, the higher the number, the faster it's going to be thrown. So I mean, you saw 18 was pretty decent. So if you rise that much more, it's just going to whip it to wherever direction it goes in. You have the release delay, so it rises up, and then how long before it gets thrown, essentially, or dropped, and which depending on what you choose. So I chose 5 seconds. Then we have the hit damage. So that really only applies if you're choosing to throw it at the player. If it connects with the player, it can damage the player, and if it does, this just indicates how much damage does it cause the player. And then you have the 2 sound slots. Now the first sound slot, which is sound 0, that is going to be the sound that it plays when it starts to rise. You can have kind of a spooky sound when it rises, and then sound 1 is when it's thrown or when it's released. What sound does it play? So in my case, what I did was I found a sound of something kind of clanking, and I timed it just maybe a second or two on the front end of that sound so that it would have enough time to traverse the room and then play the sound as it's connecting with something. So that was something I had to dial in. I think it just depends on what you're doing with it, but play around with that as well. And that's it. That's the rise and fall behavior. Kind of a great behavior to have for any kind of like suspense or horror type game, especially if you're doing any kind of ghosts or paranormal activity. This is really an amazing behavior for that. If you enjoyed the video or if you learned anything new, please be sure to click the like button down below. That helps me out a lot. If you're new here or if you just haven't subscribed yet, would love to have you stick around. Please subscribe. And lastly, if you'd like a notification for whenever new videos are posted, just click the bell icon and that'll let you know when a new video is ready. Thanks so much for watching all the way through. I always appreciate that. I really do. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. Hey, don't forget there's a written guide for every behavior, including ones I haven't yet covered on this channel. And if you want to learn some more, why don't you check out this video next.